Thank you, Maggie and Charlie. Either of you are certainly a more worthy recipient of this award than I am. I must say that when Forterra approached me about it, I was rather less than enthusiastic about the idea. It sounded much too much like something that really should have been awarded posthumously. And as you see, I'm actually not yet dead. Or maybe like one of those Academy Awards for Lifetime Achievement presented to an actor who's been in a lot of stuff but never won an Oscar. Anyway, I accepted in the spirit in which it was awarded by an organization with which I have long been associated and about which I care deeply. So thank you, Forterra. One thing I've noticed about pro forma acceptances of this type of award is that the recipient invariably thanks his spouse for his or her support. In my case, Linda Larson also would be a worthy recipient of a similar kind of award for her own considerable work in vastly different endeavors. So I'll salute Linda rather than thanking her for her support of mine. I will thank, oh please, yes. Thank you. I will thank both my law firm partners and the clients of our still relatively new firm. Those of you who routinely attend this event may recall that 3 years ago, I noted that our little firm had just been formed and only half-kiddingly asked you to send us work. Thanks to our clients, we're doing just fine. And with respect to my own practice, I feel very lucky to have such challenging as well as rewarding projects to work on. And for that, I'm particularly grateful to the clients who have favored me with their work over the years. One of our goals in forming our firm was to recommit ourselves to the tradition of civic engagement and public service that historically had been hallmarks of our former firm. I believe we've been successful in that as well, and it's by the leave of my partners that I am able to do as much as I do in our community. Finally, I tip my hat to my long-suffering assistant, Linda Jacobs, without whom life itself would be impossible, let alone this stuff. I do want to take a few minutes to speak to a couple of principles I've honed to in my civic work. Both are particularly reflected in the work of Forterra. When Carol James, Frank Pritchard, and I, and at that time I really was a very junior partner in that enterprise, co-founded the Seattle King County Land Trust years ago, we perceived the need for a private sector entity that would take a practical and realistic approach to conservation projects to complement the public sector land conservation work that we together had labored to fund through numerous voter-approved bond issues and levies. The trust that became the Cascade Land Conservancy, that became Forterra, has stayed true to that vision and has a remarkable record of accomplishments, just the most recent of which that we celebrate today. I and Forterra believe that accepting an achievable good is preferable to holding out for an unrealistic perfection. I will think about this award as celebrating the importance of actually getting things done. One of the reasons I was less than jazzed about this recognition is that in my experience as well as my belief system, successful leadership is a shared endeavor. Being singled out as an individual tends to undermine this principle and contradicts my own experience. In none of the projects that were mentioned this morning was I alone or usually even uniquely prominent. Every single one of them was a team effort, and in each I played a more or less significant role, but certainly different one in each. Allow me to illustrate this point with my relationship with Forterra. Frank, Carol, and I first worked together, along with many others, to ultimately pass, after 3 trips to the ballot, the landmark, now legendary, Farmlands Preservation Bond issue, a remarkably successful program that almost never got off the ground. A technically tricky finance problem had stalled its implementation and required a civic task force to resolve. I chaired that effort, and to support that work and eventually lead the acquisition program, we hired Gene Duvernay, brought him here to Seattle from Colorado, I think. Later, Frank, Carol, and I persuaded Gene to take on the staff leadership of the Baby Land Trust, Of course, so many others have crossed the stage with Jean as Forterra volunteer leaders, it's impossible to list you. And I recount all of this only to underscore the teamwork principle. But Jean, I also accept this award as recognition of our own long and, if I may say, remarkably productive collaboration spanning several decades. I am both honored by and deeply proud of the partnership and friendship we have together sustained. It remains very satisfying to me to this day we so easily confer together on Forterra's projects, even though by now my own role with the organization is vastly diminished. Finally, true to form, I just can't resist asking Seattle voters in attendance this morning to please vote to approve the formation of a Seattle Parks District on August 5th. I'd like one more notch on the gun. The notion that iconic, well-maintained, and heavily utilized parks are key drivers of successful cities has never been more broadly and enthusiastically embraced. Those of us who have been pitching for the Parks District for years feel it probably represents the most important opportunity for Seattle's parks since a much younger city presumed to hire the Olmsted brothers to design the foundation of the system we enjoy today. With that, allow me to once again thank Forterra for this all too uncomfortable recognition, and thanks to all of you for your support of Forterra.